Go ahead and get started. Call this meeting to order. Actually, back if we may, just briefly take things out of order. First item up, the student recognition for the Eagle Scout.
Yes, please. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mr. Bartlett has indicated in advance that he cannot be present. Also, Mr. Lavin continues to care for his mother, who will not be able to be present. Okay, and Mr. Koopman is expected later, and Mr. Yitz is expected later, but he's already addressed that. Okay? All right, so. I'd also like to add that the technology department has noticed that our presentations would be enhanced with individual microphones, okay, stationary microphones, and they may arrive at any point, okay, because I expect them to be here already, all right, so, okay, all right, so, and there's we'll give you a little demo on that. It's a green button to be alive, or if you're sneezing or coughing, or whatever, you can actually shut it down. And, it is my pleasure to welcome Matthew Coupling. Come on. Matthew and his family joined us this evening. I had the pleasure of joining Matthew in his court of honor in Blackstone. The family, he's a built-in politician. He has select persons there, representatives there, and family members, of course. And so the summary of the accomplishments here are glowing and certainly well-deserved. And I think you ran out of banner. Yeah. If there's a merit badge he doesn't have, it hasn't been created. So, but this is our school committee that supports, shapes policy on behalf of the school, meets monthly, helps with budget presentations, and helps with the presentations to the towns. Okay, and so we're delighted that you're part of the student body and you continue to represent us very effectively. So, what are your plans for the future?
Well, for the future, I've been accepted to a few colleges so far. My top two choices are URI and Norwich University up in Vermont. I'm planning on attending one of them. I haven't narrowed it down yet, but you know, when I do, I'll definitely learn at this school. But from there, I plan on going to the military afterwards as an officer. So some big plans come down the tracks, but they're ways out.
Yeah, guys. So, push-ups now. Push-ups.
Oh, yeah.
Wish everybody good. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, to the Secretary's report, Mr. Yitz.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes of the regular committee, school committee meeting of January 16th, 2020. I've reviewed the minutes and I believe they're ready to be accepted.
Well, that was a motion, right?
Made a motion.
Second.
And second. Questions, comments, discussion on the minutes?
Nicholas, we'll see you.
Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries, the minutes are accepted. Thank you very much.
Barbara is not expected. The treasurer is not expected. Well, at least not expected at the hearing, so I don't know.
Okay. Trying to think about it.
Hold it until Curtis presents.
Well, no, actually, I just didn't know. Mr. Hanratty is the assistant treasurer for the.
That would be fine.
Mr. Hanratty.
You've all received the budget from, it's my first time, yes, excuse me, doing this. She does it a little differently. I've reviewed it, it seems to be in order. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I make a motion we accept it.
Second.
Motion made and second to accept the treasurer's report as presented. And nothing out of the ordinary seems to be read. Those in questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries. And because I know we're catching up on that is the
Interest statement.
interest statement.
Yeah, Chuck, you might want to mention, item 3.2.
Yep.
3 point, the next one is the interest statement. That's the green one, I believe.
That's correct.
Everyone's received that. Are there any questions?
Dr. Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I don't want a motion.
No, I was just saying, I don't think it needs a motion. It's more.
Okay.
It's informational.
Okay, my impression is this is being shared because within the operational budget plan for next year, we're accrediting, I don't remember what the state, I think 50,000 of interest is on the green sheet of the budget, prepared budget that you're going to borrow. So I think the treasurer is confirming that we have it. Okay. So that's the connection.
Yep. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Hanrader, for filling in so ably.
Caught me off guard.
Next item. I can go. Because effective last week, I think is when I had done it, is we had a slight change to the warrant signer, the primary warrant signer through the appointment, now Ms. Mitchell. And Mr. Bartlett is going to be an alternate with, and I believe it was, no, you're the other alternate, because there's two alternates. So, so that appointment took effect last week, and that's how they'll be going, moving forward through the rest of the year. All right.
Just for,
Want to make everybody aware of it.
yeah, for clarification, this is within the role of the appointments that the chair can make, and although Ms. Mitchell rarely misses a meeting, she was not present at the meeting where the initial appointment was made. Therefore, there was not, the chair wasn't aware of the interest in continuing. Okay, fair to say?
Yes, thank you.
And that's why this action is being taken.
Makes me wonder if maybe Mr. Bartlett has something to do with her departure. So he could be.
I felt it prudent not to share the flu virus with everyone in this room.
I got it anyway, so. All right. Next up, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir.
We're already down to you.
Wow.
Well, that's
The
because.
good news is I'm on time.
Well, we're 10 minutes late getting you, but because you're in front of Mr. Steele, we're still doing good.
The first item that we need to look at is as part of our funding of our FY21 budget, we are moving a portion of our current year transportation receipts over to a revolving fund in the amount of $50,000 that will be used as an offset in next year's budget for those expenses. You are only allowed to move any funds that come in that are above the amount that was budgeted. I've listed that in detail on the vote, so you can see our final cherry sheet revenues versus what we budgeted, the variance, and then how much of that variance we are using as a funding offset for next year.
I'll read it. Mr. Hicks.
I, Anthony Yitz, move to approve the transfer of $50,000 of Chapter 71 transportation reimbursement revenues from the general fund to the regional transportation reimbursement fund in accordance with MGL section C71 section 16C. The transfer amount referenced above represents a portion of the difference between estimated budget Chapter 71 reimbursements and final cherry sheet allocations, and will be used as a revenue source to offset transportation expenses as detailed in the fiscal year 21 operational budget. $1,178,215 fiscal year 20 cherry sheet revenues for the Department of Revenue, minus the $1,103,644 fiscal year 20 budgeted Chapter 71 transportation reimbursement, with $74,571 amount available for transfer and $50,000 actual transfer request.
Motion made
Second?
and second by Ms. Mitchell. Questions, comments, discussion? Mr. Hanrader.
Curtis, what is the present percentage that the state is providing for our transportation?
It's roughly 76% is what the reimbursement rate is.
By state law, what are they required to pay?
100%.
And we have not received that in many years, correct?
Not since I've been here, and in a very long time, yes.
Is there any alternative to getting after what they are supposed to pay us?
I think that's addressed every single year, but it's competition for resources.
My question for that is because they are coming after us for back 13 and 14 for money that we owe them for retirement. Is that correct?
Yes, state
So
employees.
if they have some recourse going backwards, should we not have the same?
If I may, first of all, they forgave us for the 13, 14. So I
Yep.
guess we're expected to forgive them for the difference in transportation. The state has acknowledged that the 100%, which is 100% of appropriation, that it is not in the state's best interest to do that, and they have no eagerness or willingness to do that.
But by law, they're required to.
Up to appropriation. So they built in a caveat or a conditional situation, right? So we have worked with different organizations, we've testified as well. In fact, next Friday is a legislative breakfast where this will come up at Neshoba Valley Regional Tech up the street in Westford. And we have asked for 80%, okay? A predictable 80% is our goal, okay? And the state feels it should have never agreed to 100% because there's no motivation, you know, to be cost effective. Never mind the fact that the bus companies usually only have a single bidder for any different bus contract. We have never experienced 100%. We do not expect to experience. And we've settled on a political achievability and practicality of pursuing 80%. And we've seen increases from where they were.
Because they were much lower.
They were lower, okay. They were worse.
We've been in the high 40s at one time. And I agree, there is no motivation, and that's what the state will tell you, to actually reduce the number of buses you have, because if it's a matter of convenience for a variety of reasons and you're not getting, you know, you can do your competitive bidding, that's one thing, but there's nothing that would then control the number of buses if indeed you got 100%. So it does make you more conscientious about what you're, you know, putting out in terms of the dollar value.
But it was a caveat put out there in the first place to regionalize school systems. That was the thing why they put up to 100% to not only vocational school systems, to regionalize more areas so it would be more cost effective for them in the long run.
You're 100% right. There was also regional incentive aid.
Right.
There's another motivation for regions, whether they be vocational or not, to come together, which has also disappeared.
Any other questions, comments?
I just want to support this fully. This is the type of activity at this level of detail that some regions have missed and have run into difficulty because they have not created these accounts in the proper manner. This avoids that complication. This is the right way to do it. Motion on the table.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor of this budget transfer, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries, transfer approved.
Item 6.2, we don't have any need to do any line item transfers, so we'll move to line item 6.3. And I'll just let the committee take them one at a time, A, B, and C. These are offered vehicles for our auto tech program. I think routinely they replace between 6 and 8 per year. And this just helps their fleet turnover so for educational purposes. They can work on newer models and also, you know, use as a tool to teach kids how to cut up and dispose of some of the older models. They do that as well, so it just keeps the fleet rotated for instructional purposes.
I'll make a motion to accept. Do I do all three at one time or first?
And if there's no objection, we can do all three all at the same time.
Second.
Motion made to accept all three of the donations at once. Second by Mr. Hammer. Any questions, comments, discussion? Dr. Fitzpatrick.
Curtis, for Mercedes-Benz, what do we get, a bumper or a tire?
Bumper and tire.
Oh, no,
The paperwork last one.
I was figuring it was a luxury,
I'm
but
glad you did all three.
The owner's paper, that's why I did.
And he's an appraiser.
I saw that.
all right. Questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor of accepting these say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Those donations are accepted.
Okay, item 6.4, this is in conjunction with the roof project that is upcoming. As part of that profile for the roofing system, on our prior 3 sections, we have been utilizing the Sonofil, which is a welded rather than a system that uses adhesive. There's more longevity. Repairs and maintenance are probably less required. I'll probably turn it over to Jim, but this is a required vote of the school committee because we are utilizing what they call a proprietary spec. There are a lot of reasons why the state frowns upon that because they want to ensure fair competition, so they always believe in performance-based specifications. In this case, because through each roof project that has been competitively bid, we have ended up with the Sonofil roofing system. I've outlined 3 reasons down at the bottom why, from my perspective, working with Jim, working with our owner's project manager, why it is advisable for the school to undertake this vote. And one of the biggest criteria is obviously if there are any repairs to be done in-house, our staff is already trained and familiar with working on the systems that are currently above us, and to have multiple system type roofs sitting above is not advisable from a routine maintenance perspective by the Valley Tech staff. And then of course, another piece of this is it uses the white system, which is reflective and it's more energy efficient. So using those 3 criteria, we've used that as the basis to give the school committee the option to vote that as a proprietary specifications. I'll turn it over to Jim.
No, I think Curtis is, and again, through you, Mr. Chairman, I think Curtis has done it correctly. Back in the 2010, 2016 MSBA roof projects, we have had Sonofil. It's a white PVC membrane material roofing system. We currently have, between those 2 projects, 2010, 2016, we have about 80,000 square feet of that currently on our roof. Sonofil has been very good as far as the company, as far as warranty to work with. So again, for consistency and for maintenance and for everything that Mr. Johnson has said, it is our recommendation as well as the OPM to remain consistent with respect to the Sonofil white PVC roof system as far as our next project, which is about 24,000 square feet on the 300 wing.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second as defined and described in item 6.4. Questions, comments, discussion?
So in the specs here, the term welded, so the seams are actually melted together?
I believe so, yes. They use more of an aggressive welding process than just simple a patch with contacts in it.
So is heat involved?
Yes.
Yes.
I believe so,
Okay,
yes.
so I guess we'll thoroughly vet that if they're working with heat on the roof, the proper safety precautions are in
Absolutely.
place?
Absolutely.
Any other questions, comments, discussion?
They do that.
Just one, if I may.
No, go right ahead.
No, they didn't, no, I'm just saying.
Is the
Call them, they did that.
2 other roofs that were done with the same
Very
company,
different company.
they were done with an adhesive seam event as opposed to this being the first time we're going to use the welded?
No, it has been,
No, they've gotten the Sonofil system on the other piece.
correct. The other 2
So it's
roofing
been welded
systems
as well.
are all Sonofil welded.
They're all
seam
welded,
membrane.
all the ones we have out there currently.
Correct. The last 2 MSBA projects we did. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, discussion?
One of the purposes or functions of the weld is because the whole roof is not being done, so, right? So,
Well, the
as you
weld-
do things in fractions, okay, that you've got to secure the area with the understanding that you're going to disrupt the next phase, right? Is that?
There are many seams on the roof, and seams are the worst place you can have breakdown because of flexibility and movement of the roof. It's like an expansion joint, for, if I may, on the roofing system. So we want to make sure, typically in the past when we've had roof leaks on our old black roofing system, it's always been within the seam. You've got a seam breakdown. So it's crucial that we pay extra attention to the roofing system and how we actually do the seams.
What they do is they roll out the material over the insulation, and then they weld all of their seams together, And then when they get to the other ones, they have to put a different type of seal on the last one.
In for the continuation of
For the
it, marry that
continuation,
as
so
well.
the next one go just continue.
That's one can be triple if you want to. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
What remains after this for the committee's benefit?
We have a very large section of roof on our 100 wing where we are right now, where we did the restoration project back in 2007, 2008. We did a restoration project on this roof for approximately $5 per square foot. We took the 53,000 square feet on this roof, identified the wood insulation, cut out the wood insulation, put a black membrane over it, and we rolled what we call the white knight system over the roofing system. So it was our hope to get another 10 years out of that roof system, which we have. But that's going to be the next section of roof that we need to do.
So for perspective, look at this cost, and it's around 23,300 square feet, so moving up to 53, that's another 30,000, so the price tag will...
It's going to be a very expensive project. It's one of the largest systems we've done. Last two systems we did was approximately 42,000 square feet on the 400 wing, and the last one was about 37,000 on the 200.
And the only one left is the 100.
The only one left here is the 100.
Any other questions? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, sirs.
Mr. Evans, MCAS update.
Oh, what's it?
Chris?
You bring the sample questions, Ed?
It'll be a quick test. Hi everyone, good evening. I'm here to discuss item 7.1, which is an MCAS update. We are about to begin MCAS season here in 3 weeks. You have the English Language Arts will be the first MCAS that's administered to our 10th graders, Tuesday the 24th, Wednesday the 25th. The state has reserved the 2 days following that as weather days, or officially they're listed as Act of God days. So if for whatever reason we need to push back from the primary window, we would use the secondary window. We have mathematics will be occurring in May, right before Memorial Day. Both the ELA and math MCASs will be administered and delivered in the same manner that they were last spring. So you may recall about a year ago, I was here talking to you about all the changes that were coming with computer-based testing. The ELA and math MCASs will be, per the state, administered pretty similarly to last year, with some minor procedural changes, more at my level, with just the day-to-day. Science will be a little bit different. I briefly talked to you about this in the fall when I was doing the results, but science will be a little bit different this year, and it will be the only year that it's this way, in which we'll be doing half of our testers on paper, which will be the remaining 10th graders who did not take the science MCAS last year. Since half of their cohort statewide took the last year's exam on paper, the state's plan is to have that class, which is the graduating class of 2022, have them all take it on paper, so to have consistent data, and then beginning with the class of 2023, which are our 9th graders, they'll be taking it on the computers. So that will be a little interesting to have half of our testers on paper, half on the computer, but our staff is well versed in both, and we're experienced with both styles, and are confident that we'll be able to administer it without a hitch. Preparing for the MCAS is a year-long process. Obviously, we really zoom in on it these couple weeks leading up to it, but it really is a 12-month process. In the fall, we received the data, a ton of data from the state, and both raw forms and more focused. We analyze the data, we find out where our students are very strong, where we could improve, and then we use that data to try to harness the instruction throughout the year. One of the things that we have been doing, particularly with having a year of computer-based testing under our belt, is a lot of purposeful computer-based activities in both math and English throughout the school year to get the students used to performing assessments on the machines. In the winter, we've already had an initial staff training just to briefly refresh them on everything that they did last spring, talk to them at a very 10,000-foot level on anticipated changes, and that conversation was largely reserved for what science will look like. We had some great data analysis done by our English department this year. Team leader Sean Kahowski led those efforts, did a fantastic job, and put together a really concise, helpful presentation for the staff on universal themes that any teacher, academic or vocational, could utilize in class to help the students improve on a couple of things that we noticed from the data. We've also had the students in February complete the TestNav 8 tutorial. TestNav 8 is the name of the program in which the students take the MCAS on. So they all did their tutorial in career enrichment, and we have them take a survey afterwards in which they indicate whether after doing the tutorial they feel that they're in need of additional support. We had 2 students indicate that they feel they need an additional tutorial, and I'll be working with those students next week to go through all the features of TestNav to make sure that they feel good about operating the program. We've also built and shared with families the website /MCAS exams, which has the boot camp schedules, resources from the state, lots of different things that any youngster or their family could utilize at home to just feel a little bit more prepared. We have been running our ELA boot camps, English Language Arts, since we returned from February vacation. Those will continue through St. Patrick's Day. The English department, again, under Mr. Kahowski's leadership, have fully transitioned it to focus in on taking the ELA MCAS on the computer. Having that year's worth of data and being able to experience it has allowed them to really make some experience-informed changes, and the feedback from students and families thus far is it's been very helpful. We've similarly done that with the math department. Our team leader, Jen Garrison, has oversaw with a team of teachers a transition for the math boot camp to also specifically focus in on the tools and things in the computer-based platform. So whereas we haven't started those, we'll begin those immediately after the ELA exam. I'm confident that that's going to be really well received. Also throughout the year in math classes, they've done a lot of purposeful activities to get the students doing math on the computers, which even I noticed the difference. I grew up doing math on paper and pen. I still do my long division, and it's for those of us that are used to doing it with the pen and the paper, it's a little different. So our teachers have been trying to focus in on that, get the students more comfortable doing mathematics on the computer. And then after we're come from April break, we'll be transitioning with the science boot camps as well, separated into biology and physics. Individual teachers run them. Top notch, our teachers do a great job with the students to make sure they feel prepared. We have our final logistical preparations. I've been working with Ms. Spino in the tech department on our infrastructure testing, making sure everything is good to go from that end. We'll be cooking the MCAS breakfasts. Vocational directors are working on the MCAS trivia that we do every year with the students to lighten the mood before the test, and I'm confident that we're in a good position to have another smooth administration of the MCASs. At this point, I can answer any questions that any members of the committee have. Thank you very much. I'll be staying up here for 8.1 with Mr. Steele.
Just like to point out that Curtis was able to be done in 5 minutes, and then he handed it over to Jim and went all downhill.
Well,
So you're saying the same
I'm
thing
not
there?
sure I'm
Mr.
going to go
Evans,
short
Anthony,
tonight, but I
downhill?
will move it right along. As Mr. Evans mentioned, he's going to stick around for the discussion on 8.1. 8.1 is regarding the Student Opportunity Act, the SOA, if you will, has been the additional money that we were referring to that we received in Chapter 70, roughly to the sum of approximately $38,000. The money is intended to assist students, potentially focus on student subgroups who are not achieving at the same rate as others, and to try to equalize that and bring them up to the levels of their peers. So the additional funds, if you will, the $38,000 was purposeful, and there are some expectations with it. Going within the guidelines of how we are to utilize the $38,000, we're required to do a plan. Some have referred to it as the short form, as some of the superintendents around the state have been discussing it. If you are a district that received allotments in the more significant numbers, say millions, then maybe not so short of a form. We have an extensive plan. But some districts even had allotments all the way down in the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 range. So nonetheless, we will be required to not only create a plan and submit that, but one that will meet the criteria and the expectations of the Student Opportunity Act. I asked Mr. Evans to stay up here and join me because he's been tasked to work with myself and Curtis and some of the other coordinators how we would best spend $38,000 to close achievement gaps. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Evans, to give him a conceptual
Sure.
of what we were thinking.
So with the way that the SOA worked is the state outlined 9 evidence-based program categories. We've zoomed in on 2 of those 9, purchase of curriculum materials and equipment that are aligned with statewide curriculum frameworks, and the developing additional pathways to strengthen college and career readiness. And then within those 9 categories, there's 17 examples of high-quality programming. And what we've focused in on is supporting educators to implement high-quality aligned curriculum and increase personnel and services to support holistic student needs. So within the money that we were allotted, we are hoping to focus in on technology and curriculum materials related to, I had mentioned in my previous item, computer-based testing preparation, the more technology and infrastructure we have in place at the classroom level in the teachers and students' hands, the more effective that is and the better it is for training in that regard. And then also looking at related services and extended assistance for students with disabilities who need that extra support. Focusing in on the 2 subgroups, students with disabilities, and then our lowest performing students, which is its own subgroup.
So in a nutshell, that is what we plan to spend the $38,000 on. We'll have to capture that in a specific narrative with some precise numbers once we get some of our quotes back. There was a very aggressive timeline on this to submit the plan. First week of April, is it?
April 1st.
April 1st. The state did give us some leeway, understanding that school committees don't meet that frequently. We do need a vote from our school committee, from our school board, in support of our notion or our plan, how we are going to spend those funds. And so I believe, Doc, it was our intent to conceptually put that out to you all tonight, that is what we plan to do, and then give you a follow-up in April, perhaps a copy, if you will, of the specific plan that is submitted. Is that palatable to the committee? Yeah.
I was gonna say, that sounds good to me, then we won't have any objection to that approach.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion made to approve the plan as
concept.
presented.
Yep.
In a sense of clarity, we're trying to comply with the state situation here. But my interpretation of this request or this vote is that the priorities identified from the options would be supported by the school committee for us to develop the plan. Okay, as far as a reasonable request, rather than voting blindly here, okay? But Mr. Evans outlined that we had multiple options, 9 here, 2 were selected, and there's further subsets, and that this is the prioritization in which we would do something. So you would be supporting that approach, that concept, and then we would work up the plan from that. And you would see greater detail for a subsequent vote.
That was my interpretation.
That was mine.
That's good, that's good, that's comfort zone.
100%.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, and to make sure that the motion is second, that was their intent with the motion and second. Questions, comments, discussion? All right, seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor of approving this plan going forward, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. The plan is approved for you to take your next steps.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Moving in 8.2, discussion and update on COVID-19. I will defer to the committee for a quick feel. How in depth would you like me to go? This is something that changes and evolves daily. I just got actually a news update while I was sitting behind you there about a school closing for tomorrow. Not here, it's down in Plymouth, but how in depth would you like me to go? Give me a time frame here in respect of your time. 2 minutes? I got 2 minutes in the back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Mr. Yates said executive summary.
I'll try to keep it pretty high level for you here. One, as I did about a 35-minute presentation with the faculty yesterday, we have been extremely on top of this. Actually, before it became bulletins and protocols from the state, the Fed, CDC, the Mass Department of Public Health, and DESE, we were already taking some proactive steps. I'll break it down for you in this manner. I'm sure if you look at our website or any of our social media accounts, you will see the public statement that we have put out, as well as numerous resources that we've made available to staff and students on universal precautions, information as they come out, as they are released from the CDC and Mass EPA. So certainly on top of making sure that everyone is well informed. Down to the goals in place, we're trying to essentially maintain normalcy and not go into a mode of hysteria. And the best known way to do that is to be keenly prepared, keep everybody informed, understand that we are taking many steps and measures to be in a good position if and when things get more difficult. But in the meantime, we also try to keep things proportional and maintain business and normalcy as best we can. And we've made some precautions and maneuvers, for example, in facilities. We're under an advanced cleaning regimen because of flu season. That's something that we would do any flu season, but this particular flu season has been a tough one. Essentially the same protocols for minimizing the spread of COVID-19 are essentially identical to that of minimizing flu A, B, or C. We also did stock up significantly on all kinds of disinfectants, wipes, hand sanitizers. Did reallocate some funds with the help of the business office to go ahead and make some additional purchases. Did that early on while we could still get them. As time ticks on here, there's no guarantee that what you order you will get. It's quite a significant shortage, so we did stock up more than usual. On that theme of preparedness, even if nothing happens, which would be great, they are all supplies and materials that we will eventually use anyway. So we just simply wanted to be more prepared. To be effective, the facilities team is essentially taking the lead on what I would say common areas, hallways, things like that. I'm talking about all of the frequently used, frequently touched surfaces, doorknobs, toilets, toilet knobs, bathroom sinks, all types of things. I have asked the teaching staff, the educators, to take responsibility for their own instructional spaces. We've also given them supplies and materials accordingly, such as gloves and wipes and things like that. But they're doing those frequently touched surfaces on the interiors of their spaces, and that would be desktops, keyboards, mice, doorknobs, those types of things. The level of cleaning that we're talking about and the frequency that's recommended, it's a team effort to maintain that. It's not something that we could simply ask our evening custodial crew to be able to do it. Absolutely no issue with that. The complete buy-in from the staff to do their part. And again, we have the supplies on hand to do that and maintain that. We are an educational place with a lot of unique resources, if you will. The students in health services, along with their instructors, have a schedule this cycle and next week to go to each and every shop, and we are using a product called Glow Germ that you put, a lotion you put on your hands, and they're teaching all of the students and staff how to effectively wash their hands. Think more like the way a surgeon would wash your hands, not the quick, 5 seconds under the sink. It's the full 20-second thorough hand washing, and then you put the black light on there, and it tells you or shows you whether or not you were effective or not. So they are, I can say by next week, all students and staff will know whether they do it or not is up to personal choice, but they will know what it takes to thoroughly sanitize their hands and wash their hands. Again, that's something that it's always nice when students can use their career technical skills and pass that knowledge on to others. A few other things, school counseling obviously involved. They're helping to maintain that sense of normalcy I told you about, but it stands to reason that as situations may worsen, whether they're here or even just around the world, that student anxiety goes up, and even I would say it's fair to say staff anxiety goes up as well. So they were on the ready and prepared in helping manage that aspect of it. The nurses, Sharon and Elise up in the Docks area, have been working together with me to, again, keep all of the social media, the press that has called for statements, the signage that we put up around the building, PSAs, things of that nature, all managing, helping me manage those messages and making sure that they've been accessible. In terms of student activities, that's a very sensitive one, particularly as it relates to trips. We did cancel our trip to Austria this spring, and that was both a junior and senior trip, depending on how you look at that. We started engaging in that conversation last Friday, really about the talking with parents who have a lot of money invested about options for not going on the trip, whether it be a voucher, a reimbursement, or a postponement of the trip. By Monday, the governor declared a recommendation that no schools take any European vacations anywhere. So again, we're just a little step ahead of it, but regardless of, or prior to the governor's statement, the parents were in agreement that going to Austria was not a good idea, and we were able to work with EF Tours to get them vouchers and things like that. The good news there is that we're aware of many other schools that did not have quite the reputable tour company. We use EF, we've been a long-time customer of theirs, and they not only provide the great service that we like, but they, I guess I'll say, they have the financial fortitude to be able to have an insurance program. So our students were able to cancel their trip, whereas many other schools was take it or lose it. And so we were happy to broker that for our families and our students. Many of them, the majority of them, will just use their vouchers next year and take it as seniors. The 17 seniors that we had involved will be able to take their trips in college. Their vouchers will be good for 2 years. But the short version is we are not going to Austria. The next big trip in consideration, we have the senior class trip to Manhattan. We have a culinary arts trip going down to Cape Cod this spring. And we're monitoring all of those. We also have the aviation club trip to Florida that takes place in the spring. The general rule or policy, if you will, that I put into place is that we will look at each event either at the time of leaving or at the time of having to decide whether we're canceling, travel arrangements or what have you. That it doesn't really do us any good to speculate that in advance, but we understand, and I want this committee to understand, that as you approve these trips, the approval obviously is appreciated, but it's something that we re-examine at that time to see if it's still a good idea to even go to Manhattan. We're going to look at a trip in a minute here for 3 people to go to Manhattan for the auto competition, right? I think it's prudent that we understand what the situation is in Manhattan right now to decide if that's a good idea. And likewise, we'll have to look at it in a few more weeks to see if it's a good idea for the seniors to go on their class trip there. This weekend, they're actually coming up, not this weekend, is the MSAA School Council, the Massachusetts School Council General Conference, about 1,000 students coming from all over the state. They meet down the Cape every year for their convention. Our students have actually presented that to you. And right now that trip is on. None of the professionals who have looked at it, the Mass Association of School Councils, the Mass Secondary Administrators Association, no one has seen any reason not to go. Right now that trip is obviously a go until we have a reason to think otherwise. It's that balance that I was referring to before between taking precautions but also trying to maintain some degree of normalcy. Some other things that we always have to watch is that, like I said, as we were contemplating what to do with the Austria trip on a Friday, by Monday, it was clear what we had to do because the state, federal, and other agencies, their guidelines or sometimes mandates make up that decision for you. From what I understand, Doc was down with some of the superintendents, and they almost prefer to have the mandate. They don't have to be the bad guy who made the decision. But we've been both, if you will. We're simply trying to be prudent and ensure the well-being of our students, even if sometimes you're the bearer of bad news. But many have been relying on the constant updates from the agencies to guide them, if you will. Here's an interesting concept that I need you all to really think about. And one thing I started working on with the curriculum directors, so 3 voc directors and Mr. Evans is the academic director, is the concept of distance learning. I started looking at that because as I was following back in January what was going on in China and Japan and then Italy, it certainly caught my interest that one of the first measures that any place took was to close the schools and the universities. And what followed after that was to put some type of moratorium or ban on public congregation, any group activity. And so, of course, immediately that makes me think about, if and when, this was what, 8 weeks ago, but I've been thinking about it back then, if and when it comes this way, what would that look like for us? Is it even feasible? Is it possible? Even if you started looking at banning large groups, would that affect our graduation, things of that nature? So I started quite a while back, a few weeks back, talking with the curriculum directors about a readiness assessment, and specifically in terms of our technology and our capabilities, would we be able to run the school in a distance format? And I asked for 2 scenarios, a 15-day scenario, because that's a typical quarantine period, and a 30-day scenario, which was the common number that was used in Japan, maybe some longer durations in China, but also seemed consistent with other afflicted areas that they did 30-day closures. So wanted to know what our capabilities are before you even talk about whether or not it's a good idea or not. Nice to know if it's even possible. So we started working on that. We've made a lot of investments over the last few years in online formats, and a lot of our instruction is online. It supplements what we do every day. So packages like Canvas, Turnitin, a number of web-based instructional platforms that both academics and shops use. They're all there, but we've never obviously run them in that kind of a format. The next stage of that was to also do a student readiness assessment. How many kids have the technology, the internet access, basically adequate ability to receive and complete instruction at home? And so we're still in that process, but even as we figure that aspect out, we do know that we have enough laptops and things like that that even if it was a larger than expected percentage, we do have enough equipment that we could basically loan that out to our students who did not have computers and things like that at home, so that they would be able to do it. The next thing as you move on from there in actually making it a reality would be the time to, the professional development time, if you will, to make sure that the staff were proficient enough to actually complete that, and they would also be moving some of their content, if you will, onto an online format, namely Canvas. And so we started discussing that with various departments. Depending on what people teach, it's almost already a natural fit, if you will, already in place for many academic departments. When you go to the career technical areas, it's roughly a third, a third, and a third. A third could do it tomorrow, already use it, already do it. A third wouldn't be too much of a stretch, and another third would need a lot of help. And so, again, the possibilities exist there. It is a significant effort. I think that what I'm looking for some feedback with is whether or not that is something that we wish to explore. As I said, I started looking at this a long time ago and it seemed ridiculous, and I think it was last Friday that it was a DESE recommendation that schools explore the ability. So it has been a, not a directive, but a suggestion, strong suggestion from the Department of Education that schools explore that possibility. Another aspect of that to consider is that we're discussing the mechanics of how a school would come to a point of closure. You could have a full-blown state of emergency where the governor cancels all non-essential employees and closes all public buildings, much like you would see in a statewide blizzard, for example. You could have it in small regions. You could even have it right down to a Department of Health command or demand, if you will, for a particular school. Say this one. I think that the mechanism of how a school comes to closure is pretty expansive, or a lot of different ways that can happen. The news I was just telling you was breaking as we were sitting here, sitting right before I came up, was that Plymouth School District, or I'm not sure if it's the high school, but they decided to close for tomorrow because they're concerned about an exposure issue, and they're closing the school to bring in cleaning crews and sanitize the building tomorrow. So again, what started as something that was a little far-fetched, maybe has become more tangible at this point in time. It comes down to how prepared we want to be and how much investment we want to make in having that preparedness. One thing I would like to avoid, is continuity of instruction, that if it is possible and we do have the ability, in my opinion, it's worth advancing it. I believe just like the extra sanitary wipes and the extra, supplies and materials on the shelf that we're going to use eventually, it's the kind of thing that I hope we don't need and I hope we don't use, but I do know that developing the capability with the staff to be able to teach for a distant period of time, like I said, either a 15 or a 30-day format, would definitely make us a whole lot more proficient with our web-based instruction. I think that pays dividends during the good times too, during normal instruction. So I don't think it would be a waste just to, be a doomsday prepper, if you will. I think it would be something that would be useful forevermore. What we would need minimally is one non-contact day with the students to get the teachers set up. And my suggestion would be a contact day, but one where the kids actually stay home and the staff actually come in and see if they can do it. So one non-contact day, it's not planned this year. It's not part of the school calendar that we put forward. And then the possibility of giving it a dry run, if you will, and seeing if they can actually do it and do it from here so they have the ability to be supported. I'm not looking for a vote. I'm not looking for a decision. I'm telling you that I've advanced it pretty much as far as I can. I can tell you it's possible. What I don't want to have happen is that we wind up in some kind of a closure scenario and we start losing days. I think just like a snowstorm or an extended blizzard, when you run out of snow days and you're going to run up to July 1, you get into a forced scenario of Saturdays, Sundays, or vacation weeks. If we have the ability to recover instruction or to maintain the continuity of instruction in a shutdown scenario, and I know that we were able to do it, that would be my preference, all the way around, for a number of reasons. Altogether, I would hope that a lot of extraordinary preparations are never necessary, but I can tell you that that is how we have maintained normalcy here, and we'll continue to do that. Valley Tech's an above and beyond place. I know a lot of schools listened to Desi's recommendation to explore that and probably shrugged it off immediately. I think we could do it if we want to explore it. But I would look to you all because it takes some extraordinary permissions, if you will, with our school calendar that we have not previously discussed or decided.
Chet?
I truly believe that it would be in our best interest to do the non-contact day, to give us the ability to do this. I think it would pay off not only now, but in the future. I think it would answer a lot of questions for us. But I'd like to move to give the superintendent to explore this, and given the opportunity, if he feels it's feasible, to do it.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second. Questions, comments, discussion?
Just a quick comment. I mean, converting your in-classroom experience and online delivery is a pretty robust, adventure, I guess. Even having one day to sort of test on it. To do it, yeah. I mean, I think that should happen certainly in January for even April, May potential start, just to get the curriculum right as an online delivery model. But there's a lot of legwork for faculty to be able to come in.
It's a ton.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, to perfect things, if we would do this in a pattern where this was part, I'm sure at college level you see a lot more of online and integrated learning in that type of way. What I'm asking them to do is to say, for example, shops, right? You're not going to conduct shop class over the computer, What I'm asking them is to say, you know, can you take your related theory lessons that you have? Can you take your safety curriculum that you haven't done yet, even part of your portfolio preparations, things of that nature, things that package nicely, if you will. And what does that look like? Could you do, you know, 14 days worth of lessons with that? So it's far from ideal. I don't want to give that impression to anybody. But with a rearranging of things, perhaps over time, yes, you could really develop some things that were, you know, better. But as far as, you know, making sure that the students stayed on task, that's the continuity I was talking about, and didn't just simply lose the days, that's what I'm shooting for.
Joe, you had a question?
Does the state recognize that as a day in school? I'm saying,
Yeah.
we go through all, they would recognize.
No, that's a great question. I'm saying, yeah, good question. The state clearly does not have all the answers, and that's not a knock to the state. I think it's probably a case-by-case basis. I tell you, I don't believe we've ever been here before. I think it's new territory for everyone, including the governor and the Department of Education. I've even pondered the thought of saying, well, you know, you have a 90% attendance rule. If there was a widespread shutdown of schools, and it wouldn't take too many days before you would violate the 90% rule, right? That's assuming every kid had perfect attendance up to that point. Is it feasible that every kid in the state's going to repeat the grade, repeat the year over? No. So, you know, again, I don't have the answers, but I have thought through some of the possibilities. And it's likely you would see a waiver type scenario there, where they would just simply have to move on. Even if that was the case and we were waived out of those missed days, I still want the continuity.
Yeah.
Right? Even if they didn't count them and we were forgiven for the days, I'm still interested in the continuity of the instruction, if you will.
Jerry?
Just out of curiosity, you had said you had a third, a third, a third.
Yes.
If I understood you correctly, the top third seems like it would be more seamless and be easier to implement. Then you had a second third, you said, which you think they could probably, or they could handle it. Then you had a bottom third. Could you define what you see as a different set of issues for the bottom third, and what type of training that would be necessary or help to those? You said they need help.
I'm going to upgrade your categories a little bit. The top third are extremely proficient and use it regularly and would make great trainers for.
That's what I was hoping you would say, trainers and trainers.
The middle group is proficient with it, maybe don't use it as often or as frequently, but it's not new to them, not foreign to them. The bottom third are certainly, you know, capable, have logins and so forth, but haven't populated it with lessons and things like that. And it's my anticipation, and one thing we talked about already, is we've done a lot of great, or had a lot of great success with peer-to-peer training here. Okay. So part of that day that I was talking about taking with the staff would be to connect the extremely proficient with the less proficient, and hopefully get everybody up to an acceptable level so that we could then dry run it and see. The platforms are very user-friendly. Right? They can get sophisticated. You could do, you know, online video conferencing. You could do chat room stuff. You could just simply post things up, have students submit assignments. But it's pretty intuitive stuff. It's not. I don't believe even our least proficient users wouldn't be able to pick it up quickly. That makes sense.
I mean, should be prepared for something like this either way. I mean, even if the state of emergency doesn't come to pass and we make it through, having a plan in place is not a bad thing. So that should something like this come back around in a year, 2 years, 5 years, we got something we can pull off the shelf to at least reference.
And I'm hoping that it becomes something that they use on a regular basis, now that they've gotten much more familiar with it, that the proficiency spreads, if you will. So it's not just a third who use it all the time. Perhaps we grow that some, even if we never wind up enacting it, right? You've invested in some of that training. And you're right, who knows what it'll be next, right? It could be
There's always
virus,
something.
it could be a, you know, epic blizzard. We've been getting snow this year. Right? It could be anything.
It is still only March. No, but I know that because you've looked into some of those snow day things.
Snow day recovery, right? Same thing.
So, except that is very clearly on a short-term basis, but I think after the last couple of mild winters, we're due for, you know, a year or 7 feet, so.
It's good capability to have regardless. Crisis or not.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, so I mean, at the same time, I want to make sure you guys have the authority to move forward to put something in place, but don't feel like it's lost time if we make it through to June and nothing comes of it. Jeff?
Just to answer Joe's question quickly, we have more than enough contact days. I mean, you only have to have 180, I think we go 190 plus, so non-contact day wouldn't really affect us with the state.
No, we wouldn't. I mean, we're at that, but if it goes longer than 2 weeks, then all of a sudden it might.
Goes beyond 2 weeks, they're gonna have to adjust everything for everyone.
Right, so-
Because, I mean, we're at 100, we would be making one a day up, and everybody else would be making 15, 16 days up.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think Anthony and Doc will be able to tell you, and we try to pack as much into all 193 days. We don't, you know, take none of these days are taken for granted. We expect to get the most out of them. So. Doc, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, certainly. I support the, you know, the recommendation. This is, you know, advanced preparation. Some of the other things, the commissioner's come out and said that he does not expect to grant any waivers for reducing the school year. Okay, he's also encouraged at this point, although there haven't been any formal distributions, but there are expected to be some tomorrow when he meets with the superintendents across the state and up in Harvard, that you be prepared to make up time, whether it's a vacation, loss of vacation, or on the weekends, or in the event happens. Secondly, some of the school systems with, I guess, more aggressive union activities have already been, the association of the union group has already alerted the superintendent that they will not permit any use of their sick or personal time if there's a quarantine. If people are told don't come to school, okay, they don't want to have any utilization or loss of the sick and personal time for being prepared to come to work, but being asked not to go to work. And so there's some pretty interesting dynamics relative to paying people for not working in some settings. We have looked at some district technological or distance learning a couple different times. We looked at it with Worcester State, and they ran into issues with their union. We also looked at the Milford Army. We went down there more than once to look at their connecting to their district learning. Anthony has revealed a more updated plan, building upon also aware of the technology that we have today, which is more advanced than it was then. And so I appreciate the recommendation. We would use this to plan, use it like any other productive in-service day, and we think it will add to the learning skill set whenever it's used.
Disaster planning. Any other questions?
Well, I think I'd say it a little differently. Almost every business has a business continuation plan.
Business continuity plan.
I don't know if we need to categorize it as a disaster, but if we run the school well, we would have a business continuation plan as well.
It's a backup.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. With the motion on the table, all those in favor of giving Doc the authority and approval to...
Ability to modify the calendar.
Ability to modify the calendar to accommodate that. Say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's a short version.
The next item is in your packet, 8.3, it's a blue sheet, it's a senior calendar. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read it to you. It is very much patterned off of last year's senior calendar, and the year before that, and the year before that. The most, I think, pertinent thing in there is the senior trip to Manhattan, which I already addressed under the corona concerns, and I assure you that we will be monitoring that decision very carefully.
Oh, I did want to say is, because I heard a little bit over here, is if that was the short version of the coronavirus update, I'd hate to hear the long version.
Yeah.
It's all about the details, Joe.
Yeah, the word, it's like, thank you, Rich, coming home.
There is one other COVID-19 matter I want to bring to your attention. I'm sure you recall that a few meetings ago you approved a rather unique trip for an individual on co-op to go to the UK with his co-op employer. Obviously, that is not only being watched by me and the soundness of that decision to go over to the UK right now, but also the employer, and whether or not the event's going to even take place. They did a similar event domestically, from what I understand. I don't know if it was down in New Jersey, where they held the event but had no spectators. Right? So they basically did the contest and all the lighting and everything and sound for the contest, which is what he does, like the stage crew stuff. But they had no spectators at the event. And so the UK has had some of the most extreme proposals on the table. Their ideas for school and even business shutdown was 12 weeks to 3 months. And so that's in their kind of disaster planning or emergency planning or business continuation planning. But they are really bracing themselves, and so it'd be a good question whether or not the event is even going to happen, is even going to work on. A lot of options there. Certainly as a free citizen, he could go to the UK without our support, but they may run into some state and or federal quarantine guidelines coming back. So we've been talking with the families and discussed, monitoring it carefully in similar fashion. We'll all make the best decision when the time comes. Okay?
No, and actually I recall that because, you know, I know we know you're always keeping an eye on these trips because, like we just, I believe it was Haiti last year, we approved, and they ended up canceling the trip for other reasons, but you know, these trips are in constant motion as to what may happen and change.
Sorry to get off track there, but were there any other questions on 8.3, the senior calendar? Okay, we'll move right into 8.4. They found 8.4A is a shop trip for HVAC, 36 students to go down to Pawtucket, going to a expose, I believe, controls college, building and automation control.
Joe, I move that we approve the trip with provision that they're fully aware that the superintendent may cancel it at any time.
I'll second that.
Motion made and second to approve this trip, subject to final sign off by Doc as the event gets closer.
Make him block the bad guy, huh?
Yeah. Joe, when the designated agent from the state who comes out of the Department of Public Health.
Questions, comments, discussion? As we all duck. Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
The next one is a competition in auto technology. These students are actually advancing from the previous standing. It's Mr. Peralt, their instructor, the 2 students going down to, I believe it's Manhattan, training from Providence to New York City. And I will put the same disclaimer on this, that there is a lot to monitor. It's a ways off. It's April 13th. There may not be a competition. There may not be out-of-state travel at that point in time. A lot of things could change, and obviously, like all of these other trips, we'll examine them thoroughly before they go.
I'll make the motion with the same contingencies of 8.4A.
Motion made
Second.
and second, subject to the same contingencies and oversight as the trip gets closer. Questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. The trip is approved.
Great. Thank you. Moving on, 8.5, just a recap. I know I told you a bit about practical nursing graduation back just prior to it happening. It was on January 22nd. We did have 16 graduates that evening that were honored and pinned. At the moment, 4 have passed their NCLEX exam, and in 2 to 4 weeks, somewhere in that range, there's a whole other cohort of those graduates taking their NCLEX exam, so we'll find out from them as well. But 16 graduates, 4 have already passed, and another group in line to pass their exam. Questions on practical nursing graduation? Okay. Last, I have a NEASC update, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. It's that magical time every 10 years or so where we do our decennial accreditation. Our decennial will be in 2022. The last one was in 2012. And the process starts roughly 2 years out. So we just had the chair of NEASC, the Career and Technical Division. His name is Bruce Sievers. He came out and made a visit with us, spent the afternoon with us on February 24th. It's a customary kickoff event, if you will. Obviously, we'll have a visiting team coming out in spring of '22. And in the meantime, we will be doing 2 years of self-study, some public notifications that the process is coming up, and obviously a lot of preparation in that. Everything from, on their end, selecting our committee chair and getting together a visiting team of approximately 25 people. We have a few professional development opportunities we need to pursue. On our end, with specified folks who will be working on various committees and preparing reports. Some part of it is just getting accustomed to what changed in the accreditation process in the last 10 years. So all of that is well underway, but it is significant that we have kicked off the process as of February 24th, and we'll keep you informed as we hit new benchmarks in this. We have budgeted for it in the coming years, next couple of years, for ’22, and it will drive a lot of our professional development calendar for the next 2 years as well in terms of our focus and what we're working on. Questions about the NEASC update?
A few hours ago, got a request from Mike Swanek to go to Connecticut for accreditation team. Okay, you should expect to get that tomorrow.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Next item on the agenda, budget. Ms. Mitchell.
Hi, thank you. So earlier this evening, the public hearing was held in the library to discuss the proposed FY 2021 budget. I'd like to thank all the committee members that served this year, and Lorna and her team and Curtis for moving the process along. We will be asking you later on during this session to vote to adopt the FY 21 budget with a 3.9% increase. And then Doc will be presenting the various dates when the Finance Committee meetings will be happening, and he will be taking the show on the road. Doc, do you have anything you'd like to add?
We welcome 2 chairs of finance committees here this evening, from Upton and Hopedale. Okay.
Anthony, do you want to review the school choice vote?
Sure. I believe it's the next item in your handouts, correct? You have a copy of the letter. In traditional fashion, we have worked with our school council as a primary input of our faculty, students, and parents. We specifically dedicate, although they have some input throughout the entire budget building process, we do dedicate an entire meeting Alderman Mangano and Curtis both attended that meeting, and we present the budget as it has been built. They do have an opportunity for feedback, and do give us that, and they did vote in support of the budget request as presented. I take that as a formal vote with them, and then capture it in the memorandum format, and that's what's been provided to you there.
Thank you. Item 9.3, we have the motion for the suggested E&D authorization for the budget. Would someone like to make the motion? Do you want to read it?
I, Jeff Koopman, move to approve the use of $225,000 from the district's certified excess and deficiency funds as a funding source for the FY21 proposed budget. The district's commitment to identification of alternative revenue streams, fiscal austerity contributes to its ability to generate E&D. This valuable resource provides a revenue source that creates a reduction to member assessments. And as specified here, the breakdown of $898,566 certified E&D, $500,000 transfer to capital projects, $398,566 available E&D, $225,000 requested for fiscal year 21 budget, for a total of $173,566 projected available E&D. And that's the full analysis.
Motion is made.
Second.
And second. Questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the use of $225,000 E&D for the FY21 budget, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item up is the budget as, as presented at the public hearing earlier tonight. It's time whether we want to adopt that budget.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and second to adopt the budget as presented at the budget hearing earlier tonight. Questions, comments, discussion? Doc.
Just to point out to the public, while the public hearing took place earlier and walked through the budget, I think in reasonable detail, the budget subcommittee made presentations over the last several school committee meetings indicating progress reports and met 10 or 12 times in publicly posted sessions to build that budget. So that was not the only time. The public hearing was not the only opportunity people had to discover specifics relative to the FY21 budget being voted.
And for the benefit of the minutes, the budget is for $25,602,950, an increase of 3.9%. Questions, comments, discussion on the budget? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor of adopting that FY21 budget, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for all the hard work and all the service, Ms. Mitchell. Next item up, Dr. Fitzpatrick.
Oh, I'll be right there.
All right.
Joe, item number one. Item number one.
Pardon me. Item 10.1, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Earlier this evening, we had a public hearing on school choice, and the conversation and the recommendation coming out of school choice was that the school once again not adopt school choice and would welcome a motion to reflect that.
So moved.
Motion made.
Second.
And the reason for it is we don't have the space. We have over 800 students who applied for 300 positions, and I can't see letting 500 people in our own district not go to school here and taking someone from the outside.
The motion is made and second. Any other questions, comments, discussion?
The district does forego revenue, but for the right reason.
It isn't fair to those students that applied and could not get into the lack of space to then hold seats for those not within the district.
Yes, and
I think that's a nutshell of our
I think it's disrespectful to the taxpayers to support the school as well.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of not accepting school choice, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Those negatives get you every time.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, item 10.2, I'm most pleased, speak on behalf of Anthony, myself, and the full leadership team, to alert people who might not know that our athletic director, Michelle Denise, was named the athletic director of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts by the Athletic Directors Statewide Association. And there is a function that will be held in Hyannis. We will be recruiting a table of individuals that are cross-representation of the athletic programs to go to that awards banquet. So our own Michelle Denise earned this distinction. So we're very sure. Since I'm in the points of distinction, I'd like to also point out, I don't think they're captured in the posted agenda, that the Mass Vocational Association will recognize Tom Lamont, our painting and decorating instructor, as the new teacher of the year for the statewide association. And since we're on a bit of a roll, the legislator of the year to be named by the Mass Vocational Association is our own Senator Michael Moore. So each of the people associated with our district are earning the special distinctions, and we're very pleased to have this level of expertise both within the walls and assisting us at the legislature. Moving on to the agenda items, 10.3 as a handout, you receive a communication, a copy of the communication that I received from the Mass School Building Authority, from Jack McCarthy's group, indicating the confirmation, which was part of the conversation with the public hearing, that the district will receive a maximum reimbursement of 55% for the proposed roof project that has been approved, and that reimbursement level will be $781,720 at a maximum. If in fact the actual bids come in at a lesser cost, they would be adjusting this to reflect the 55% of the lower bid. Certainly, the $781,000 coming back is made possible because the district was willing to support full funding by us for the roof, this section of the roof project, and this would return that to the Treasury to be otherwise utilized. But it'll come in portions through the accelerated program with reimbursements bundled by the Treasurer and Business Office. Any questions on that? Hearing none. Item 10.3. I attended the American Association of School Administrators National Conference and to stay in tune with a number of things happening at the national level, and have always found that beneficial. So I continue to do that. Not really that convenient to do this travel, but nevertheless, it's been a good association. I previously served on both the executive board and the governing board of the state association, so have a lot of people that know through that process. So, and this would be part of my professional development, setting a tone for professional development for everyone. So, any questions? Hearing none, moving on. The Mass Association of Vocational Administrators will be holding their vocational awards banquet on the date posted. And so, you want to comment about the home base of the students?
I'm not following.
It's Douglas, right? We usually invite the school committee member.
I believe it is Douglas.
Yeah, I thought so too. So,
yeah.
okay. All right. Yeah. Well, we'll speak to John, but if in the event Mr. Lavin is not able to go, didn't know if anybody else has interest. Okay. So it's a Douglas student. 2000, number 10.6. If you notice the large check in the back, right-hand side, on the date indicated, I think it's the 25th, the governor of Massachusetts, along with the lieutenant governor and the three secretariats for the state, presented a commitment of $830,106, no change, to us for further capital improvements, primarily committed to biotechnology transitions that we're making within the school. So We have not included that in our budget request for the towns because we were successful in securing that very competitive money. So, any comments or questions? We're already working on the next one. Item 10.7, we have a couple of donations. Oh, by the way, there is a communication from the state that we handed out. There were 4 awards of a major magnitude. We received the largest of those in the school system. I think there were 54 awards in total, okay, that were presented. So several, or not most of them, for a significantly smaller amount. And if you look at the back side of that, it listed some of the awards. Okay? So, and you can see the magnitude of the award to your school. Okay. Any questions? Hearing none, moving on. We have 2 financial donations in this list. This is an example of what we do rather than charging sports fees or other things. Donations of this nature, these 2 came from Milford Federal Bank and the Millbury Credit Union. And the vans that are subsidized by these are also used to transport athletes occasionally, not only just work hard, but athletes the same. So we continue to be in pursuit of additional donations to complement the assessment. Thank you messages have been shared and photo ops have been coordinated if any donor wanted to have that for their own public relations business. Any questions? None. On February 6th, the chair of the Hopedale Finance Committee, Sam Hockenberry, the gentleman on the far left, was kind enough to come over at my invitation and spend a tour. You know, I think you like the science classroom the best based on your tour, but I appreciate that thoroughly. Mr. Flaherty, the Veteran Finance Committee person and chair from Upton, is very familiar with us and has been here more than one occasion and is always welcome. But Sam was his first visit, and I want to compliment him on his willingness to do that type of due diligence. It's beneficial when we have an opportunity to have conversations, you know, and the open lines of communications are good. Okay? I hope that's true. Is that a fair statement, Sam?
Yes.
Good. Moving on, we have some notifications of retirement. Item 10.9A. John Kelly, a highly respected family from Upton, gave his notification, and he's just a real gentleman, real pleasure to work with. Okay, very talented individual, and he certainly would be missed. You can see from the nature of my note that we owe him a debt of gratitude. Moving on, 10.9B, Charlie Murray. Once again, Charlie Murray was a mainstay of the custodial department, an individual who, in my opinion, among other things, set a great example for work ethic for students. And it's a nice way to see that. I spoke to some of the other custodians and said that you miss him, and they said, heck no, we're going to blame him for everything now. So anyway, we wish Charlie the best. Also accepted with regret. Received a notification of separation from the short-term custodian who decided to look at other options. Any questions? Hearing none. You have Anthony's newest newsletter. This is for parents. And you can tell the detail and commitment that he makes in these communications. Again, it's talk about the spirit of competition. This is the spirit of the message that we encourage everyone to adopt. And I applaud Anthony's commitment and the level of time it takes to craft these messages. It also contains a number of things for scheduling purposes. Questions? No? Okay. That's it. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, new business. Does any member of the school committee have any new business to bring forward tonight?
I have a question. I was thinking about something when we were having the MCAS presentation. About 2 years ago, I think it was, we were a test site for a new type of test that was going to come possibly as a replacement for MCAS. Whatever happened with that program?
In summary, I imagine people might answer that differently. I would say the newest form is a merge of the old and the new. Okay. So they built upon the field test experience to create a fusion between the two.
Okay.
And it's more online than it used to be.
So,
but they're still worried about environments that cannot accommodate the technology for the.
So our participation is leading to some changes in the structure of the MCAS rather than something brand new that's going to.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't abandon the MCAS, okay? But it wasn't just us either.
Yeah, right. There were a number of schools. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, it validates the efficacy of the different format. In this most recent one, it was going from paper to computer, but we've also participated years back in other similar type trials where they validated. They also incorporate student feedback, both statistical and, if you will, their experiential feedback. And ultimately, that's where how your test develops over time.
Okay. Any other new business bring forward tonight from the committee? Do you have anything new to bring forward?
I do not. We addressed it with the flexibility of the committee as we walked you through the earlier part of the agenda.
All right. Item 7.10, items for good of the committee are available. If you would like a copy, just let Doc know. Next regularly scheduled school committee meeting, April 16th. And we do have an executive session item on the agenda.
Has to be held. Collective bargaining.
Yeah, no, so I'll entertain a motion. I mean, the items are regarding executive session minutes and collective bargaining strategy.
I'll make a motion. I'll second it.
Motion made, a second, go into executive session. I'll start over here.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. We'll take a few minutes. We motion is made and approved. We're going to go into executive session because discussion of the subject in open session would be detrimental to the school committee. We will be the only business we will be conducting after we come out of executive session is just a decision on the release of the executive session as subject of the meeting, which you're going to recommend.
I didn't see it in there.